night was darker than usual on the wide, lonely plains of the Wild West. A cold wind whispered through the grass, and the only sound was the crunch of boots against gravel as rancher Thomas made his way back to the barn. He had just finished a long day of work, his hands aching, his mind weary, but then something stopped him dead in his tracks. From the corner of the barn, faint but clear, came a sound that made his heart lurch. Mama. At first, Thomas thought he was imagining it, but then again the tiny trembling cry broke the silence. Momo. It wasn't the sound of a calf or any animal. It was the fragile voice of a child. His chest tightened as he followed the sound, every step slower than the last. There, tucked beneath old hay and half hidden in a rough, worn sack, something moved. Thomas's calloused hands shook as he bent down and pulled the sack open, and his blood ran cold. Inside was a baby, no older than a few months, her face pale, her lips trembling with cold, and her tiny fists clenched. She looked up at him with frightened eyes, and again her weak cry broke his heart. Mum! For a long moment, Thomas just froze, his mind swirled with questions. Who could abandon a baby like this? Why here, on his ranch, in the dead of night? And what on earth was he supposed to do with her? He had lived most of his life alone since his wife died years ago. Children weren't part of his world. He didn't even know how to hold a baby without feeling like he might break her. Yet, as the baby's cries grew weaker, one thing became clear: if he didn't act now, she wouldn't survive the night. With trembling arms, he scooped her up. Her skin was cold, and she whimpered against his chest. For the first time in years, Thomas felt tears sting his eyes. He rushed inside, lit a fire, and wrapped her in his old wool coat. The baby quieted slightly, her fragile breath soft against his chest. In that moment, something deep inside Thomas shifted. This wasn't just a child left to die. This was a second chance, a test of his own heart. But the challenges were just beginning. The nearest town was half a day's ride, and the baby needed care immediately. He had no milk, no crib, no idea what to do. He found himself pacing the cabin floor, every cry from the child piercing him like a dagger. Then he remembered the neighbor's widow, Martha, who lived 3 miles away. She had raised children of her own before they'd moved east, and if anyone could help, it was her. Without wasting time, Thomas wrapped the baby tighter, saddled his horse, and rode hard through the night. Martha's face turned pale when she saw him at her door, clutching the tiny bundle. "Dear Lord." "Thomas, where did you—" "I found her," he interrupted, his voice breaking. "In a sack, on my ranch. I don't know what to do." Martha didn't hesitate. She pulled them inside, took the baby gently, and began warming milk by the fire. "She's starving," Martha whispered. "But she'll make it. You got her just in time." Days turned into weeks, and the baby slowly grew stronger. Thomas visited every day, his rough, weathered face softening as the little girl began to smile and grip his finger. He named her Hope, because that's what she had given him, something he thought he had lost long ago. Yet not everyone in town looked kindly on the situation. Rumors spread quickly. Who would abandon a child in such a cruel way? Was Thomas hiding something? Some even suggested taking Hope away to an orphanage. Thomas stood tall against them all. "She was left on my land. That makes her my responsibility," he declared, his voice steady, his heart firm. But one night trouble came. A ragged, broken woman stumbled onto Thomas's ranch, her eyes hollow, her body weak. She collapsed at his doorstep, whispering, "My baby, my baby." It was clear she was the mother. Life had crushed her down, poverty and desperation forcing her into the unthinkable act of abandoning her child. She wept bitterly as she confessed, "I thought she'd die if she stayed with me. I thought maybe someone stronger could give her a chance." Thomas faced the hardest choice of his life. Should he hand the baby back to the woman who left her, or keep raising Hope himself? He looked into the woman's broken eyes, then at the child sleeping peacefully inside, and finally he understood. "You don't have to do this alone," he said softly. "She's your daughter, and now she's mine too. We'll raise her together." For the first time in years, Thomas's lonely ranch wasn't so lonely anymore. With Martha's help, with the mother's slow healing, and with Hope's laughter filling the air, the ranch turned into something new, a family. And as Thomas watched the child grow stronger every day, he realized this was the gift life had sent him when he least expected it. Hope had been abandoned in the cold, but she had brought warmth back to his world. Viewers, if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear that no matter how dark life feels, there's always hope waiting to be found. Even in the unlikeliest places, the wind howled across the open plains, carrying with it a coldness that seeped deep into bones. The night sky stretched endlessly, stars twinkling faintly, but the silence of the ranch was broken by a fragile cry, "Mama." The rancher Thomas stopped mid-step, his lantern swinging in his hand. His weathered face, lined with years of hardship, tightened with confusion. "What in God's name?" he muttered under his breath. He turned toward the barn, the sound echoing again, clearer this time. "Mum," heart pounding, Thomas pushed open the barn door. The horses shifted nervously, sensing his unease. He swept the lantern light across the hay and froze. There, hidden beneath straw in an old burlap sack, something moved. His hands trembled as he bent down and pulled the sack open. Inside lay a baby girl, her eyes wide and terrified, met his as her tiny lips quivered. She let out a soft, desperate cry, "Mama." Her skin was pale, her body frail, and Thomas's chest tightened as if someone had gripped his heart in iron fists. "My lord," he whispered, the words barely leaving his lips. For a man who had buried his wife years ago and lived a life of silence and work, this moment shattered him. He had known loneliness, but never had it cried out to him in such a fragile voice. He scooped her up clumsily, holding her close. She was cold, far too cold. He hurried to the cabin, lit the fire, and wrapped her in his old coat. She whimpered, pressing against his chest, seeking warmth. Tears blurred his vision, tears he hadn't shed in years. The next morning, Thomas saddled his horse, the baby bundled in his arms. He rode hard across the plains until he reached Martha's homestead. Martha, a strong but kind widow in her 50s, opened the door. Her eyes widened. "Thomas?"
What? What is that? A baby?"
he said hoarsely. "I found her in a sack on my land. She was freezing," and Martha gasped, quickly taking the child. "Dear heavens, she's starving, Thomas. You did right bringing her here." She warmed milk by the fire, guiding the bottle to the baby's lips. Thomas stood by, helpless yet transfixed as the little girl drank eagerly. "What are you going to do with her?" Martha asked. Thomas's jaw tightened. "She was left with me. That makes her mine now." Weeks passed. Thomas visited Martha's home daily, learning how to hold, feed, and care for the baby. She grew stronger, her tiny fingers clutching his hand, her soft laughter filling the once silent ranch. He named her Hope, but rumors spread in town. Some whispered that Thomas had taken the child for reasons unknown. Others said it was sinful to keep her without kin. At the saloon, a man sneered. "Best thing would be to send that babe to the orphanage, Thomas. You're no father." Thomas's eyes burned as he stood tall. "She was left on my land. I'll fight tooth and nail before I let anyone take her from me." One stormy night, a knock rattled his door. Thomas opened it to find a gaunt woman, her clothes torn, her eyes hollow. She collapsed at his feet, sobbing. "My baby," she whispered, her voice broken. "Please, my baby." Thomas's stomach turned. You're her mother." The woman nodded weakly. "I had no choice. I had nothing. No food, no home. I thought if I left her, someone better would save her. I prayed God would send a miracle." Thomas looked at the sleeping child inside, then back at the shattered woman before him. Anger and pity wrestled in his heart. "You left her in the cold. She could have died." Tears streamed down her face. "I know I hate myself every day, but I wanted her to live. That's all." Thomas stood in silence, his chest heaving. For years, his heart had been buried under grief. But now, with Hope's laughter and this broken woman's pleas, he realized something. Family wasn't just blood, it was love, sacrifice, and second chances. He placed a hand on the woman's shoulder. "You don't have to do this alone anymore. She's your daughter, but she's mine too now. We'll raise her together." From then on, the ranch was never silent again. Martha helped guide them, the mother slowly healed, and Thomas, once a lonely rancher, found himself smiling at the sound of Hope's laughter as it rang across the fields. Hope had been left in the dark, abandoned and cold, but she brought light back into their lives. And to everyone watching this story, if you believe no miracle can come your way, remember this: sometimes life places hope right at your doorstep when you least expect it. So if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that even in the darkest nights, hope always finds a way.